Welcome to Lesson 8 of the Wycliffe Australia Story of the Bible online comprehensive course. In this lesson we will have 3 sections. Part A, you will use your storyboard in telling the Resurrection Guard story. Note the appendix in this section and check whether you've correctly identified the actions in the Resurrection Guard story. Part B, you will review Chapter 3 of Making Disciples of Oral Learners and learn about people who are oral preference learners. The title of Chapter 3 is Oral Communicators and Oral Cultures. In this chapter, the author illustrates how powerful oral communication methods can be for oral learners. In Part C, you will review an article named Don't Underestimate the Power of Stories, written by a keen Bible storyteller. In this lesson, you will learn how to use your storyboard for maximum benefit in crafting a Bible story. A storyboard is a wonderful tool. It will help you to imagine the events as they happen in the Bible story. It will help you to identify locations in a story and to use those locations in the telling of the story in an interesting and memorable way. The storyboard will help you identify unnecessary details in your story so that they can then be removed. It also helps us to identify potential repetition in a story. And finally, the storyboard helps us to set up an imaginary stage on which to tell the story, and so it grips the imagination of the audience. In Homework Assessment A, you will learn how to use the storyboard to refine your story and tell your story in an interesting way. When you have practiced using your storyboard, then practice without the storyboard, using your body language to the maximum benefit. How about you invite some friends to hear your story and ask them for their feedback? Telling your story publicly will help you improve your skills. In Making Disciples of Oral Learners in Chapter 3, you will learn about a missionary who was doing a research project. He produced some stories based on the book of Hebrews and was using local Indigenous music. He wanted to test how well the Christians could understand the message in the songs, but there was a problem. A Muslim leader came to the meeting. The missionary felt that the Muslim would skew the test results and so asked him to leave. The Muslim leader felt that he had a right to stay. After all, the tribal Christians and he had more in common than the foreigner. So he challenged the foreigner to a competition. A great story from which we learn many lessons. Enjoy Lesson A, and you will find your homework assessment and also the reading assignments very profitable. Now, before I finish off, don't forget to stay on and watch the 2 following video segments. See you next time. God bless.
Now, one of the most important aspects of Bible storytelling is to understand the differences between the way oral learners learn and the way literate learners learn. Our whole schooling experience tries to convert us from being oral learners to becoming literate learners. That's the goal of formal education. Now, children are excellent learners. They learn by observing, play acting, reciting, discussing, singing, and mimicking. These are all excellent ways to learn. They are the ways oral learners learn. A person doesn't have to be able to read to be an excellent learner. Some totally illiterate people speak several languages fluently. How many do you speak fluently? Now, literate learners are convinced that reading is the best way to learn. But many people in Australia and elsewhere graduate from high school and university still convinced that the best way to learn is by observing, play acting, reciting, discussing, singing, and mimicking. Now, convert these activities into the church language and you will have corporate worship, rituals, sacraments, rites of passage, poetry, hymns that are predictable, with memorable tunes, repetition of the creeds of the church, and set prayers that can also be learned. That's the way the church operated in the Middle Ages and right down to the last century. The main point for us to understand is that most adults in the world are oral learners. If we want to reach them with the gospel, it must be communicated in a way that oral learners can hear it. That's the kind of communication Jesus demonstrated.
Our kids were turning to the ages of 11, 12, 13, and we were moving country from South Africa to Australia. And in doing that, as parents, we were challenged with how do we keep our children rooted in God's Word. I thought the answer was easy, just read from the Bible. It didn't work at all. The kids were kicking each other underneath the table. They were playing on their new bought mobile phones. Even my wife was wandering off in thought. Into storytelling, we learn about storytelling and start applying that, initially with hardships, but over time it becomes better and better. And up to the point where we would, as family, get together with the kids now out of the house on a Sunday for lunch. At one stage, one of our sons brought a girlfriend with, who was not a Christian. We knew that. And we still did storytelling and did the questions. And we're astounded to see how Grace was engaging and participating and giving good answers. We now live abroad, my wife and I. I'm on a contract in Europe. And we still meet with our kids on Zoom. And from time to time, we still use storytelling because it really works.